Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a look at Greedent. Now, we didn't have a Greedent back in our first Sword and Shield set, but we've just got one in Rebel Clash, and there's another one that's going to be coming out in what is going to be Darkness Ablaze outside of Japan. So, turns out Greedent was a bit slow to get started, but Greedent is now being shown some love. Now, if we start off with the basics, I should remind you our translation comes from the lovely Antoine Boulet. We've got 120 HP, which I'm not a huge fan of, because there are way too many Pokemon out there that hit a natural 120. Much rather have 130. You got a retreat cost of 1, which means free retreat with U-turn board, which is rather nice. And you got a weakness of fighting, which means you share a weakness with stuff like Dedenne and the Crobat, which is going to, well, it's going to replace Dedenne either when it comes out or when Dedenne goes away. Either way, lots of Crobat. So, and that's not to mention stuff like Pikachu and Zekrom. There's lots of good fighting weak Pokemon around at the moment. Anyone that tries countering them is going to end up countering you as well. Consider yourself warned. And I used to say, that being a colourless Pokemon gives you no extra advantages, but that's no longer true, ladies and gentlemen. Because yesterday or the day before, depends on the upload schedule, I showed you Powerful Colourless Energy, a colourless energy card that gives colourless Pokemon an extra 20 damage. It is strong energy for colourless Pokemon. So now, we're all in favour and we're delighted, and yay! But what does it do? Well, according to the lovely Antoine Boulet, the first attack for a single colourless energy, making it a pretty good candidate for Powerful Colourless Energy, does 20 damage, but before doing damage, you discard any tool attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. Nice! I kind of like this. This is giving me serious Farfetch'd vibes. Now, to be fair, Farfetch'd does extra damage if there is a tool. This is the Farfetch'd from Team Up, which incidentally will survive the rotation. 1 colourless energy, 20 damage. But if your opponent has a tool card, you do 90 damage and discard any tools that they've got. Plus, there's an adorable Psyduck in the back of that artwork, which I love. Point is, if you're trying to go after tools, single energy colourless Pokemon, Farfetch'd might be better, but if you're playing Greedent anyway, this is cool. And I do love the theme going on here, because of course the Greedent from Rebel Clash had the ability that just lets you search for a tool once during your turn. So now Greedent giveth your tools, and Greedent taketh away your opponent's tools, which is very cool. I kind of like that. Greedent is apparently the tool Pokemon, and I have no problem with this whatsoever. Also, as a side note, I really like this Greedent, and if you are playing this new one, then playing the older one just as an option to dig you out a tool here and there, not a bad thing, ladies and gentlemen. Not a bad thing at all. This is a handy bonus. It means you're going to be able to get around things like Lucky Egg. So if your opponent has very few cards, but they've got Lucky Egg, you can take away Lucky Egg so they don't draw till 7 cards when you get a KO. Or something like Cursed Shovel that would be milling the top 2 cards of your deck when you take a KO. You can get rid of that without it actually coming in. And just a few days ago, I showed you a new card from this very set, Smokestick, that basically says if you KO a Pokemon with Smokestick, any prizes you would take for the KO are discarded rather than being added to your hand. So I kind of love the idea here that you can get rid of these super annoying tools while taking a KO, and you're good. But this isn't why we play Greedent, it's a bonus. The reason why we play Greedent is 2 colourless energy hit and run. 100 damage, put this Pokemon and all cards attached to it back into your hand. It is a hit and run Pokemon, and I absolutely adore it. Adore it. I mean, if we look at the kind of hit and run Pokemon we've got at the moment, we've got Hitmonchan. Now, admittedly, Hitmonchan is a basic Pokemon, but it's doing 30 damage. Even if you're hitting for weakness, you're still not doing 100 damage. So I absolutely adore this compared to that. Morpeko is another nice example, and Morpeko actually does 150 and switches to the bench. But it's for free energy on a fairly low HP 2-prize Pokemon, so it's hardly a perfect solution. This one I like. And we've got both triple acceleration energy and twin energy that will pay the attack cost here. And I know that triple acceleration energy is discarded at the end of your turn, but because Greedent goes into your hand when you attack, it's not on the field at the end of your turn for it to be discarded. So you can legitimately play 8 different energy cards that will pay this attack cost in one go here and let you hit and run with Greedent. And of course, if you're hitting and running with Greedent, you can get away with playing a slightly weaker, shorter, thinner line here, which will open up the play of using your other Greedent. And then of course, you can have something like a Vitality Band to do an extra 10 damage, so now you're hitting 110. And the great news here is, right, you hit for 110, but then it goes back to your hand. So you attach Vitality Band, attack, and immediately put this Pokemon into your hand. So there is never any possibility of your opponent using Tool Scrapper to get rid of Vitality Band. Now, of course, this is like a bunch of Pokemon we've seen before. The last one I remember that went back to your hand was actually Mienshao. And I might be pronouncing that badly, or Mienshao. I do apologise. But this was the last time I remember a Pokemon along these lines, and I loved it, incidentally. It was a really fun Pokemon. Now, it was also the last Mienshao we actually got, and that was in Furious Fist, which was ages ago. But it was 40 damage for 1 energy, return this Pokemon and all cards attached to it to your hand. But then, of course, you would be using stuff like Strong Energy to do an extra 20 damage, and you would have Muscle Band to do an extra 20 damage. So it wasn't really 40 damage, to be fair. But still, this is really good. I adore this. Now, one of the sad things about Greedent is powerful colorless energy really isn't going to work very easily. What you want to be doing with this is attaching a twin energy or triple acceleration, attaching a Vitality Band, hit 110, go to hand, put a blocker up. We'll get to blockers in a minute. That's what you want to do with Greedent. And I do believe, incidentally, this is the best hit and run Pokemon. But I don't think you're going to be using powerful colorless energy very much, because you will need another energy, and that's just going to get kind of awkward, unfortunately. What would be really cool is if Counter Gain was still here, but the fact of the matter is that Counter Gain was printed in Lost Thunder, and it is going to be rotating out basically as Greedent comes out, and it still only works if you're behind on prizes anyway, and it stops you using Vitality Band, so you don't need to do an extra really 10 damage, so no. Now, because you go into your hand, you do need to look out for Reset Stamp and Marnie. That was the difficulty with Mienshao. It was cards like this. And that is going to be the difficulty with Greedent. There are 2 widely played cards that make your opponent shuffle a hand into their deck, and your opponent will be using them. Well, they'll probably be playing them, and if they're playing them, they will be using them against you. But if you play consistently enough, you should be all right. You should be able to work around that. I feel fairly confident you will be able to. The point here is that this is a phenomenal hit and run Pokemon. And of course, we've got 4 great options right off the bat, because we've got Lily's Pokédoll. Lily's Pokédoll is an item card that you play as a Pokemon and doesn't give up a prize. So there's 4 turns where you're hitting and your opponent isn't taking a KO. I know we've got Boss's Orders nowadays, but there's only so many of them your opponent's going to be able to play. There is a possibility that between the 2 to 3 they play and a couple copies of Power Pad, maybe they can actually do 6 in a game, but that's very unlikely. Fione is an option to make you switch your active, but all you need to do to avoid Fione is just make sure that you've always got a second blocker on the bench. Galarian Cassola is probably my favourite one here. It is a Stage 1 Pokemon, but it's got an ability whereby if it is KO'd, you flip a coin, and if heads, the attacking Pokemon is also KO'd. So if a VMAX takes a KO here, they get 1 prize and you get a 50% chance of 3 prizes. That is very much in your favour. Plus, you've got all the prizes you're taking from your natural attacks anyway. That sounds nice, ladies and gentlemen. That sounds kind of nice. And honestly, between Lily's Pokédoll and Galarian Cassola, I think you're pretty nice here. There are others. I showed you that Dracovish yesterday, or a couple of days ago, that when it's in the active, your opponent is not allowed to evolve their Pokemon. That's going to be kind of awkward. We've got Galarian Weezing that when it's in the active turns off abilities. So if you're against an evolving deck and they've not managed to evolve yet, Dracovish has got your back. If you're against a deck which really only runs with abilities, Galarian Weezing has got your back. I still think Cassola and Lily's Pokédoll are the better options here, but my point is we've got enough good Pokemon you can whack in the active here, and that's gonna be kind of hilarious. We've got a bunch of hit and run Pokemon, and Hitmonchan has seen a bit of play and a bit of love, but stage 1 Pokemon, single energy attachment, 100 plus damage, yeah. And now, and a while ago, we got a whole bunch of hit and run Pokemon, and I was going, look, we just don't have the blockers. Yeah, now we do have the blockers. I'm giving this 4 wasses. I don't even care. I know some people are going to think that's way too high. Don't care. This is, as far as I'm concerned, and I know this is a superlative statement, and I feel good about it, the best hit and run Pokemon we've got. And the fact of the matter is that we've seen stuff like Mienshao, do really well in the past. We've seen stuff like Excelgor do really well in the past. I don't see any reason why this wouldn't also be able to do really well. I'm in love, ladies and gentlemen. I'm in love. And on a personal level, this is, along with Salamence V, probably the Pokemon I am most looking forward to starting to build decks with. I am loving this, ladies and gentlemen. I am loving it. Oh, and just while we're here, I've gone and looked up the pronunciation. It's Mienshao. There we go. Mienshao. You learn something new every day, ladies and gentlemen. You learn something new every day. Apologies for the times I got it wrong. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know what you think about Greedent. Are you as high on it as I am, or am I just being a little bit of a little squirrely fanboy? Let me know in the comment section. Go nuts. Me nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are pretty gosh darned awesome nonetheless. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.